Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start the install of the force brake light and LED reverse light from Diode Dynamics. The first step is we need to get these plastic nuts off this rear trim panel and remove it. And then we're going to go ahead and get access under the carpet on either side to get to the connectors that are on the brake lights. And I believe we need to get to both sides because the harness ties into either side. There's a module that just needs to be installed on one side, but and then we need to fish the extra wire down through one of the grommets in the trunk well. But there's four plastic nuts here. This looks different than the others. And these guys actually, that's kind of nice. I'll show you a second. These guys actually at least have a metal nut on the inside of them, so they won't strip out on you. So we got these off, and we'll go ahead and figure out how to pop this guy off. I think it just pops back, but I'll do it off camera. I want to break it. So once you have those nuts off, you just kind of get your fingers around this corner, pop it forward. I believe there's a couple clips down here. I got it loose. I think I'm gonna, yep, you have to pick it up a little bit. And that's it. Comes out pretty easy. You can see there's a couple tabs here. Might get some light on. Yeah, so don't pull it straight out. You have to pop it forward and then kind of tilt it, because you will break these guys off if you try to pull it straight out. So you got to kind of, it's kind of an odd setup here. Pull it forward here, lift it up to clear these clips, and then lean it forward. It's fairly intuitive when you go to take it out. So, okay, we got that panel out. Now we should just be able to pop these plastic tree clips here. I hope they're probably tree clips. I can't stand those, but most likely they are. And then we should be able to get behind the lining. Also, make sure you remove the pseudo spare tire well cover. I guess it's still a spare tire well, but they give you the inflation kit. So it came a little bonus there. Because you won't be able to get it past these tabs, and you'll need access to these grommets anyway, so I forgot to remove that. So now we can go ahead and get this panel completely out of the way. And if anybody's wondering where their funnel for using a like an emergency fuel tank, filling up the gas, because it has the capless gas port, for lack of a better term. I guess the capless fill nozzle. This little funnel is hidden under this back panel, so I guess you have to reach under there to get it. I had no idea it was there until I took this out. I'm sure they have that in the manual, but who reads those? These are definitely tree clips, unfortunately. I think we'll get another reuse out of it. You can just see how these things get all mangled, and just use your handy plastic pry tool to get it out. You got the carpet here, there's no or metal to really scratch up, but it's still nice to have these. So once you have those clips out, you can now get access to this connector back here that was behind the fabric liner. I popped another clip out back over there. You can see the white spot. I'm not sure if it's necessary. I was thinking I could pull the panel out, but then I remembered when I did a speaker install on my 2016 that there's more clips on the flat side behind the fold-down seats, so I don't think you need to remove that guy back there. We'll find out on the other side. So you're going to go ahead and pop this connection here and install your adapter from Diode Dynamics. So here's the main electronics module for the harness that has two connectors that will end up splicing in line. Yeah, it's very dark. Hooking in line to where the factory connectors are. Then they give you, there they are. So it's going to go in line with those two. And then there's another set that has a protected harness set. We'll go over to the same connectors on that side. So we're going to go ahead and put this guy in. I'm going to see if there's a way to secure it, because it's not heavy, but I don't really like the idea. Sorry, I'm a little congested. I really like the idea of it hanging just kind of by the harnesses in here. So I'm going to see if we can zip tie it to something. So I did some fishing around back here, and I really couldn't find, get some better light in here, a good place to mount this guy. You like use a zip tie, mount it down. But you can see this, the receptacle side of the connector from the factory harness is mounted in place, so it actually suspends the harness or the electronics box, and you see there's no tension on that factory wire. And then when we put this panel back in, or the lining, I think it'll keep it pretty well in place. I'll probably reach in there and try to lay it on top of this shelf there. I think everything will be okay. So now we've gone ahead and got the wires, the harness coming from that electronics box, and you got the red line that's going to go through the grommet down to the backup light. So we're going to run this guy over into the corner and mate the side, and then run the red wire down through one of the grommets. So you can see with this fabric cover back over, the trunk lining back over, that connector leans right up against it, and there's a little pocket in the foam that it rests in nicely. So I don't think we need to tie it up anywhere. The other thing you may want to pay attention to is, if you get in the wrong place, so you can get a little bit of a knock out of it, but I think you'd have to hit a pretty significant bump to hear that. So you may want to pad it, but I haven't seen anybody else do that. So we went ahead, we ran the harness down this way. So we're going to go pull back the other side and get this one installed, and move on to routing it down to the reverse light. So there's the passenger side, or I guess it doesn't really matter which side you do it on, but there's the other side of the harness installed. Make sure that you don't run your red wire over to this side, because that's meant to go through one of these grommets. You'll have to chase it back out again if you do. It's only the two connectors that you route over to the other side. That's opposite of where you put that little electronics module. So I've seen two different ways of doing this throughout the third brake or the fourth brake light wire. Either the Diode Dynamics instructions recommend putting it under this grommet. I'm not too keen on that. Got sharp metal edge there. I could cut into the wire, and there's power there, so it doesn't seem like the best idea. I think I saw it on CJ Pony Parts, one of their videos for this. They popped this grommet right here, which doesn't have anything in it, put a little hole in it, and use that. And I think that's, if I can get it out, I'll probably, yeah, get it out this way. Yeah, so just put a little hole in this guy. And worst case scenario is just replace this thing. Cheap part. It is pretty, yeah, it's still rubber. It's just a hard rubber right in the middle. So we'll pop a hole in this, maybe run a little bead of RTV on it, and run that wire through. So you're going to want to go ahead and disconnect that connector from the reverse light. So there's a flat tab. There's not a lot of line on this guy. Let's see. There's a tab right here. You just gotta feel around. I can't even find it now. There it is. There's a tab on this guy. I found it by finding the flat side of the connector. It's right there. The other side's round when you reach up under there. So find this flat tab, push it in, pop it off, and then you're going to want to rotate the bulb assembly in there to get it out. And there's the bulb carrier right there. It's pretty large. And so we're going to replace this bulb with a LED. And just a note, when you're looking at it, facing it, you rotate it clockwise from behind, but it's counterclockwise to get it out. So we're going to go ahead and put a hole in that grommet and fish the wire through. Okay, you can see we have the new wire for the fourth brake light drop down. We're going to go ahead and push on the middle hole here where the middle contact would be, and there's a sealer plug in there, and that's where we're going to end up. You can see there's a gap barely see there's a gap right here between two wires. That sealer plug is going to be where we put this guy, and you can see he has his own little sealer on him. So there's that green plug just peeking right out. So let's use our screwdriver, push it out, and we'll remove that. and check the orientation on installing the new contact. I'm not sure how easy it's going to be to see. It's hard to get light down here. You can see that there's a thicker portion on the bottom of the contacts. I believe that's where the spring tab is, and you can see it's right there on this guy. So I believe you want this spring tab, this thicker portion of the contact, to be lined up with the connector face like this. But there is a guide tab on here. Where'd it go? Right there. So hopefully that'll help keep us out of trouble. Let me put it in. So when you're installing this contact, it may vary just depending on the molding of each one of these connectors, but mine was not easy to get in. I ended up taking the provided screwdriver here. Sorry about the camera angle, but this is kind of tight. And using it to push against the flat faces of the back of the connector to push it in. You are not seated until that grommet is all the way flush in there. And you check the connector. It's going to be hard to get this, but there it is right there. You can see the connector face all the way butted up against the plastic. And it takes quite a bit of force, at least in my case, to get it in there. Just pushing it through wasn't going to work because the wire kept folding up, and I was worried the more that happened, the more it was going to wear on the braids, and eventually the wire would have gave. So just take your time, use the tool like I said. There's a blade, and I believe I showed the correct orientation, but when you look from the back side in here, there's actually a notch. So you'll see a lip, that's the tab that the hole in the connector goes into and locks in place. And right next to that, on one side, there's a channel in the blade on the contact. There's a little blade on the bottom. Almost looks like a crimped area that wasn't fully tightened down, but it's actually a guide blade. There's only one way that this goes in. So when you're putting it in, you should be able to get it by hand till the grommet is just kissing the back of this, and then you're going to need to push it in to lock the actual contact in. If you don't have the blade in the correct orientation, it won't go in nearly that far. Like I said, it won't go all the way in, but you'll see that grommet kissing right the edge of the back of this connector. So now that we have the contact in place, there it is. I've drawn up the excess red wire up into the trunk because I don't want it hanging down in here. And I'm going to go ahead and throw some silicone. Now that I have the length where I'm at, where I want it, I'm going to throw some silicone on this grommet here, seal it up, and I'll put the bulb in and put all the fasteners back together in the trunk. So we've got our plug sealed up, and we have our LED bulb in the connector, so we're going to go ahead and reinstall this and plug the connector back in, and hopefully it won't. The noise, but my parking sensors are going like crazy. But you can see we have a really bright reverse light, and I'm going to pop it out of reverse and show the fourth brake light. And here's a light active as a driving light. So install went pretty well. We're just going to have to go ahead and I think I'll zip tie up the loose red line that goes down, and yeah, put everything back in, put those couple tree clips back in. Got one there, put the plastic panel back in, and we'll be all set. So it's not a horrible install, but honestly, putting that pin in is a lot more difficult than their instructions read. Now, it may have just been my experience. So, I mean, those connectors are all molded differently, so who knows. But anyway, pretty cool little feature. No cutting into wires. I guess if you decided to remove this, you'd have a little bit of a challenge because, so if you decide to sell your car and take this out, you know, the connectors back here, those are all easy, but that wire, the added wire to the reverse light connector, you may be able to get it out with a screwdriver. You'd have to try to release the locking tab. I guess it could be possible, it would be very difficult. So you may end up, I think it's just a standard Molex connector. If you decide to replace it, you may just cut the wire at the very back of the connector, and you'd have to find a new contact, worst case. So anyway, Kind of cool little feature, and they're only about 80 bucks, so nice little upgrade.